Hello everybody, this is just a quick video, not really going to be considered part of the LP for Trove. Let me move my mic real quick, my bad, I forgot. So this is a video on Trove release. It's going to cover a couple different things that I've really felt like should be said to every new player. I'm going to announce sort of where the series is going to transition, and I'm also going to tell you why you should play this game and why this is a good game. And I feel like this is something that should be reiterated on Twitch and on YouTube and that kind of a thing because, well, let's talk about why. So first off, I would like to say that I'm currently playing with the controller. That is a new thing for Trove, and they added it in the patch a couple days before the release. I don't know if anything has changed with the controller support since that original patch, but I made a video about it as soon as it happened, and then I figured that it was kind of unfair for me to make this video because it was a little critical of the devs, and then I decided it would probably make more sense if I just made this video after the game has been out for a while. Or after the when the full release came out. That's when it's fair to judge it, because it was only 2 days ago. Maybe they caught some bugs, maybe they did some things that they didn't do before, and that kind of a thing. So I figured it was appropriate. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. Okay, not bad. So let's talk. Before we talk about that, though, I'm just gonna play around with it a little bit. You'll be able to see what I do. You'll probably notice the camera's a little jumpy. We'll talk about that in a second. But let's first talk about the queue times today. The game has been out, for 12 hours, about, more or less. Oh my god, what am I doing? Oh, that's my secondary, right. Sorry, I'm not used to the controller. So the game has been out for a while now, a couple hours. I mean, that's not very long at all, but we got to see basically how their first day of launch went. And I would say that it went pretty poorly, and I'm really sad about that because I think this is an awesome game. But that's why I wanted to make the video, because I want people to know that they should indeed play this game even if they were frustrated initially. It's a free-to-play game, which means that, of course, on Steam, you're going to get a huge amount of players when they launched on Steam, because people love free-to-play games on Steam because they figure, heck, I'll try it, why not? And so I think they probably knew had a pretty good idea of how many regular players they would gain from their initial launch, and probably had a pretty good idea of what their player base would look like at launch. But what they probably didn't expect is the flux of players who would be sort of a one-and-done kind of player. They would just say, I want to try it because it's free. And the influx of those players, I think, is causing a real problem for the servers. The queue times are up to 20 minutes. They generally say that they're at about 10 minutes, but I just spent probably 8 minutes or so stuck on 3 seconds left in the queue because there's 15 players ahead of you. And is there? Okay, that's how you collect stuff with the controller. And that's not great. That's how that went down with the queue times like that. Also, the servers keep crashing due to the volume of people. I would assume that's why they're crashing. And it's probably left people saying the game is really buggy or the game is broken, and don't get it, don't play it. Maybe people will recognize that it's just because it's launched, and maybe they'll try again in a couple days. But chances are a large number of people aren't, which is really sad to see that, they couldn't get more server capacity, at least just for a couple days post-launch, until things went to normal, and then maybe gave it back to Arcade or something. I don't know how it works. I'm sure you can't just transition a server from one game to another like that. But point still remains. In that vein of things, I would like to talk about the possibility of us being in this situation for much longer, or ever again, really, where we can't get into the game. It happens every now and then with games, where you can't queue into the game, because there's a lot of people. Trove is no exception, but I have seen on social media, in various different places, the Trove developers being very dedicated to the game as a whole, and getting it up and running. And I even remember reading a post quite a while ago, I think it was on Reddit, about one of the developers making a post saying, I know the servers are down, I'm hopping a bus right now, like getting public transportation or something, I'll be at the office in a minute and I'll fix it. Which is like, you know, when do you ever get something like that? Like someone on their own time, when they're not at work, getting on a bus or whatever and coming to fix the problem after work. That's pretty awesome. I also know that they're real quick with their hot fixes, so if there is something technical other than just too many players going on, they will fix it soon. I can almost guarantee it. Also, I want to talk about the controller, because I said I made a video on it and I was a little critical, and I was. And the reason why is because, like a lot of games that try to throw in a controller, it is not good. And I mentioned that I was worried they were going to put on the Steam page that it was controller, you know, partial controller support or full controller support or something like that, and that a lot of people were going to play it assuming they can use a controller and then trash the game for it. And this is kind of what my main concern is with this server problem with everything. It's bad press, and then the game does not get the attention which I feel it deserves. You can play this game forever. There's hours and hours of content. You can still be a part of its development by making submissions for gear. The community is awesome, and they've added so much, and they're gonna add so much more. So it's disheartening to think that this could hurt its launch as much as it might. We kind of have yet to see how many of these new players actually stick around, but if they continue to have to wait 15 minutes, 20 minutes to get inside the game, you can bet almost none of them are going to stick around. But let's talk about the controller. So the controller has pretty awkward controls. I would like to re-keybind pretty much everything. That's not a problem on its own, A, because it's a new feature and they might switch it up for some more intuitive controls eventually, and B, there is a configuration file if you're willing to go into the game files where you actually can re-keybind things, and that's good. So that is a problem, and that would be disappointing, but you know, it's something that you could address on your own or that they could fix with time, and that's kind of the least of my concerns. My bigger concerns with the controller are that I can't access my inventory. I can't equip new gear. I can't let's see, I can't change my class. I can't change the way my person looks. I can't do anything like that. So this game is just not playable. I mean, you haven't seen me switch into my inventory yet, and that is because I can't. There is no way to do that. So you really cannot play this game with just a keyboard. Don't put this up on your TV, you know. Don't stream this to your TV and sit on your couch with a wireless controller, because you will be very confused if you have never played Trove before and you just don't understand why you can't do a lot of the things. Another thing, the mouse, look how, now this is not all that fast of a scroll speed. I apologize for the, you know, hope you don't get dizzy, but it's pretty fast. It's not all that fast, okay? The real problem is that there's no acceleration to it, meaning what you've been seeing me playing as right now are the tiniest little flicks. These are the tiniest little flicks of my analog stick on my Xbox 360 PC controller that I can manage. Tiniest little things. Okay, the moving is fine, but this needs some acceleration. When you have a mouse, you don't want that because you can move mice really smoothly, right? The other thing is that mice have sensitivity, and you would think that it would make sense. I'm full disclosure, switching over to mouse and keyboard to look through the options. Head over to the controls. There's a mouse sensitivity. Well, maybe you just want to turn the mouse sensitivity down. Okay, that's fine. Let's go back to the controller now, and you can see it's the same speed. I would assume that that's just a bug, or that they didn't put in the settings to change the separate control for controller sensitivity, because they don't have one. So that's, I assume that portion of it is an overlooked. But when you're using a controller, you want sensitivity of looking around, or acceleration rather. In other words, if I'm moving my controller a little, I want it to move a little. move like, you know, 0.1 its max speed, right? If I have my controller down, if I have my controller down 1/10 of the way, I want the cursor to move 1/100th of this max speed, right? It's not a 1-to-1 linear analog. And then if I move my controller, you know, 50%, I want it to catch up and now be a 1-to-1. And then or you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to explain. But basically, the farther it needs to be even slower than it is at the slow speeds, and then, because, you know, this is how fast I could ever really see myself spinning my cursor, and I am moving probably a third of the way to a full analog all the way. And I don't think it's a matter of just I guess acceleration isn't the right word, but I don't think it's a matter of just turning the sensitivity down. I think it's more than that. It's more of you need a different the way the speed of your cursor goes up and down based on how far you're pulling needs to be different. Another thing, this is not a huge deal, but it is it is always nice, and it always shows that they went the extra mile. This is something you see pretty often in AAA games. If I were to come up to this sign and look at it, we can see that it says E still, but I'm using a controller. So one of the things games will frequently do is that the last type of control that has received input, in other words, if my button on my controller was pushed, then all of the controls, tooltips, and that kind of things, including on the hotbar, M2, 1, 2, Q, R, and T, would switch to little icons for what button they should be, or at least the name of the button in plain text, you know, like A, B, X, D1, D2, D up, D down, or something like that, who knows. And then if I go back and I start moving something with my mouse like this, then it would say, ooh, now we're getting mouse and keyboard input, and then it would switch them back. Now, I'm not really expecting Trove to reach that level of detail, especially not right at the start, but it would have been nice. I'm just saying that, you know, it's hard to remember what to do. So let's talk about the controls for a second. If I do my right trigger, it uses my alt fire, right? And then if I use my right bumper, it's the basic attack. Simple, okay? So you would so it looks like bumper is weak, trigger is strong. Okay, so let's apply that, or you know, the bumper is the more basic one. The more high-level one is the alternate one would be the trigger. Okay, now let's go to the left side. Left bumper, intuitively then, would probably be the weaker one out of the two that are left between the #1 ability and the ultimate. So you would expect it to be the #1 ability. I do it, and it actually pops my ultimate. Okay, that's unintuitive again. Trigger does the #1, so they're kind of switched. So it's really hard to keep in your head which one they do. Which maybe they just made this for a generic controller, and maybe that's a quirk of the Xbox 360 controllers, just because, you know, under the hood controllers just have numbered inputs like button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4. Maybe that's just them going in sequential order, and then on an Xbox 360 PC controller it's weird like that, and they didn't tailor it for Xbox 360 and they just made it generic controller. But still, come on, I mean, at least test it, right? At least test it. If you tested it, you would see that the sensitivity was weird and it would take a long time to get used to. You would see that that is a little unintuitive. Maybe they didn't see it, okay? But let's keep going. I'm going to press back to go into build mode. Fine. Now, with the new building, if I hit right trigger, that does the digging. If I hit right bumper, that does the placing. And with the new building, it's actually fairly viable, which is kind of nice. I have not really seen that many building games on a controller that are viable. Again, the sensitivity is causing me to actually have a really hard time keeping my laser beam on these blocks. But that's fine. Okay, but what if I want to switch blocks? We can't go into our inventory to switch new blocks, which means that we have to get stuck with what's on our hotbar unless we're going to transition to our keyboard and mouse and select it and then go back to a controller, which is kind of weird. So let's see, how do I get to the next item on my hotbar? Well, there actually isn't a button to do that. Instead, they picked 4 buttons on the controller and mapped it, 8 buttons on the controller and mapped it to 8 different buttons on the hotbar. So if I press Y, you can see that slot 6, X is slot 5, B slot 7, A slot 8. D-pad is rotating through the first 4 slots, so I have to keep 8 different button combinations in my head to get through the first 4 buttons. Now, I recognize that there probably isn't a function in the code that says move to the next inventory slot. It probably is only move to inventory slot, and then you give it a number, and it moves to that inventory slot. So you can see that they tried to make a really quick one-to-one analog to the way things work on the keyboard, but it's just not a good control scheme. Okay, let's go, and I would like to also mention before I go any further that I love the Trove developers, and I've been very complimentary of them in almost all of my videos. I almost mention them every single video, especially every time we do a patch video. They're awesome developers, and I have no doubt that they will sort this out. But I mean, the timing, you're taking on a huge new player base, and you add this feature, and it's probably the worst feature they've ever added, in my opinion. Not necessarily because it isn't salvageable, but because how did they not see it coming? How did they not test it, right? Unless someone higher up in Tryon said, we need controller support and we need it now, and the developers were like, what? We're not ready for that, and then it was just an unfortunate business happenstance or whatever. But come on, okay, let's keep going. So we've talked about sensitivity. We've talked about the how you can't do half the things in the game because of the menus, and you can't do a lot of the stuff with and building. You can't move around your inventory or your hotbar that intuitively, whether you're in build mode or in battle mode or whatever the normal mode is called. Okay, fine. So let's talk about so we don't really know by looking on this screen what to press to use a bomb or to take a flask. We don't. We know if we're on a keyboard and mouse, we can take a look down and we can see. So I just had to start experimenting. A does nothing. I would expect A to be jump. A is jump and pretty standard for a lot of games like this, but I guess it doesn't have to be. I think that it would make the most sense. I want the button that is under my resting thumb to be the jump button, especially in a game like Trove where you're jumping all the time. But fine, it's not. Let's press B. Okay, that's dash. I guess that makes sense to me. That's fine. Let's press X. Oh, we ate a flask. Okay, that's fine. So that's okay. X is generally reserved for use, I would think. I mean, not really. I shouldn't generalize. Games on controllers use a variety of control schemes. I would think that it would make most sense having X be used, but the reason why A did nothing is because A is actually a use button. And just like in the Trove game, with the keyboard and mouse, use is an all-encompassing use, which means that if I want to claim this cornerstone, it just basically maps to the E key, and I can use that. If I want to refill my flasks, I can come up here and I can use that. If I want to go over to the class changer, I can use that. Oh, I can't actually change my class. You can see my cursor hovering over the Neon Ninja button right now. I can't do anything to move it. Matter of fact, I can continue to play the game in the background. But, alright, now we can't back out of this using the traditional B button. We have to know to press start somehow. Okay, so let's go over to the style saver. Maybe there's a way for us to navigate our menu and put things in. No, there's not. As a matter of fact, there's the cursor in the same place. Didn't even hide it. Didn't add a new feature. Didn't add the ability. Now, I understand it would take a lot of... Oops, I just broke my cornerstone. Can't fix it. Can't fix it because I don't have cornerstone blocks on my hotbar. Okay, I understand it would take a lot for them to add a new feature where one inventory slot is always selected and you're doing a move up, move down with an analog stick. That is very different than the mouse controls. But if you're not going to be able to pull it off, I'm just curious as to why they bothered to put it in the game. I wasn't even aware that they were planning on adding controller support, and I know that probably a lot of people are asking for it, but why don't you just say it's coming, just like you say with every other thing, and we're totally fine with that. And then when, do it right, rather than waiting right before your launch and then pushing such a thing that could be a problem. Now, you're probably saying, Eddie, look, this is not a problem. Not many people play with controllers, especially on PC. And you're right. But think about the people who do use controllers on PC. People who are console gamers who buy consoles because they're cheaper and they can't afford big, beefy gaming PCs. People who will see a game with graphics like Trove and think, hey, I can probably run that on my laptop with my... And oh, it has controller support. Thank God they didn't put controller support on the Steam page. And then they have the problem of people, they're console players because they have consoles because whatever. And if they're a hardcore PC gamer and they're less of a console gamer, they're probably going to play with the keyboard and mouse. But they're also probably going to play a lot of other games. Like they're not. There's a certain... I don't want to generalize here, but as far as I know and as far as I have observed, that a lot of the people that will say, hey, a free-to-play game, let me give it a shot, are people who aren't going to pay for the AAA titles on PC because they don't have the big beefy PCs. And those are people who might also be the ones who prefer controllers because they're not the hardcore PC gamers, and maybe they're just, you know, more console players, and maybe they bought a controller because they prefer it or whatever. I just feel like I mean, like I said, if they had put on the Steam page that this has controller support in any capacity, I think that they could have gotten some bad press. They didn't. Maybe that's because they knew the state it was in and that it's a very early state and not really ready yet. So, fine. But between that and the server issues, we have a problem. Which is that I would say that there was a pretty rocky first day of launch. I hope to God that you all continue to play Trove. It is an amazing game. Play with the keyboard and mouse, damn it. Or wait until they fix the controller issues, but then come back. Please do. It is an awesome game. There's so much to do. Hours and hours of enjoyment. There's some awesome streamers who stream all the time and have a lot of fun. They do a lot of giveaways, myself included. And you can collect stuff if you love collecting loot, if you love a great community of really nice people, including the developers, really nice people who interact with their fans. But also just the players are, I mean, super nice. And you know, there's lots of everything from trading with other players to taking on dungeons together to collecting all the loot you can collect. Leveling up classes, building awesome structures. I mean, it really has a whole slew of things that, you know, you never really get all in the same game. And they're done well, and there's still going to be updates and improvements to the game. And, hey, look, these trees. Oh, I was going to say, these trees took on an awful grid-like structure, but that was just probably coincidence. So, I guess I'm going to end my rant here. I probably could go on for a little longer, but I'm not going to. They don't really deserve criticism because, you know, these things happen. Features are not always 100% on launch in a game, even though ideally they should be. I do think they deserve some criticism for just, especially the controller thing, because it's just, you can't even do everything in the game. It's really not controller support. I just don't think it was ready to be pushed into the main game. But, you know, the server thing is also unfortunate. I know it's pretty common with games, but, you know, it's something that I think companies should catch on to at this point. They need a lot of servers for launch, especially if your game is going to be free to play, and especially if your game is going to be on Steam, where there is a massive number of players who will literally just try anything free to play, because why not? I mean, it makes sense. Why wouldn't you? There really isn't. Maybe the game will be your favorite game and you'll play it every day for the rest of your life. So it's free to play. You have nothing to lose. As long as you got the hard drive space, you might as well install it. And I don't think they saw that coming, and I think they're biting the bullet for it now. I was really hoping that Trove could even be as high as, you know, top 3 lines of Twitch or something like that tonight, and I don't see it happening because people can't play the game themselves. They can't, because it's going to take them 20 minutes to get into the game, and by that point they give up and just assume something's broken. And, you know, who knows how many times they're going to try that. It's been like this for hours. It's been like this for about 12 hours, so, I mean, who knows how long people are going to try that until they just give up and never come back to this game. And that is really unfortunate. But you should play it, is my point. This was a hiccup. This was a little trip. And they will get back up, dust themselves off, and they will keep going. They'll keep putting out patches, and I will keep making videos on it because I'm in love with this game, and I hope you are too. So that is my spiel. I really wanted to say it. I wanted to simultaneously kind of call out Trove as well as defend it, and I will. I know it probably didn't come across this way, but especially if this is the first Trove video of mine you're watching, but I will defend Trove till the death, even though it had this unfortunate launch, because it's just a game that deserves that much credit. It really does. All right, so I've been sitting around ranting for a while. I'm going to go. Hopefully this video didn't come across the wrong way or wasn't too boring. I know we didn't do much, but hey, I got a level for my Tomb Raiser, right? But that is going to be it for today. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep playing Trove, and I will see you guys over on Twitch for some live streams. Twitch.tv/EditedEdster. We'll play Trove. We'll play some other games, But you can bet your butt we're going to play some of this awesome game. So if you're not convinced yet, head on over to twitch.tv/editedster, and you will be convinced because we have a lot of fun over there. See you later.